And so we move on, and unlike the previous show we talked about, this is a show that I actually did grow up with, though after rewatching it, I kinda wish that I didn't. This was a show that Aardman did for CITV, because of course it was for CITV, called Planet Sketch, and as you can imagine from a title like that, it was a sketch series. Unfortunately, like most sketch series for kids back then, pretty much every sketch had the same setup and the same punchline, which naturally gets very tedious very quickly. However, unlike the sketch shows on BBC, which were mostly just boring, with the exception of Horrible Histories of course, this is just aggressively unfunny. This was Aardman's first, and as far as I'm aware, only venture into CGI in terms of a television series, but while unlike in Flushed Away, where the CGI was not all that noticeable because they more or less just copied the same style from their stop-motion movies, or After Christmas, where the design of the characters' faces looked a little bit odd, but in general the actual CGI was very good, this show just looks ugly as sin, in that really creepy way that most 2000s CGI TV shows tended to look back then, which I've gone over before in some other videos, but basically CGI TV shows didn't start to look really good until around about the 2010s. As you can see with the characters, they are designed to look like Nick Park's Aardman creations, but with a slightly more exaggerated proportion to them, since they can get away with that since they don't have to make the models being able to support themselves since they're not in the real world like stop motion characters are, but still having that very Nick Park style face to them doesn't really blend well with the more cartoony proportions. Plus the reason that Nick Park's faces work with a lot of the characters is because they do have very stocky proportions, which makes sense because they need to be in order to support the armature within them. At least they did back when he started. Nowadays armatures are a lot more sophisticated, like if you see the Leica movies you can see that they are a lot more skinny and very cartoonishly proportioned, but that's a subject for another day. Here, when you see the characters have those really skinny limbs but still very rounded bodies and that traditional Nick Park face added to them, it just looks like a mess. That, and combined with the fact that the CGI is very poorly rendered, lacks details, and just has a very bad movement style, it just looks very unpleasant. But that's the least of this show's problems. All of the sketches are incredibly unfunny. You name it, they all suck. The sketch about the girl who has stuff stuck up her nose, which is just disgusting. The sketch about the pair of horses with the young one who farts at the end of every sketch, which is also just disgusting. The silly problematic Japanese fighting fish.
Slow down. Don't eat too much if you want to stay fit and hard.
Fit and dead hard.
The ninja handyman, who is also slightly problematic.
Ha! Don't forget these. Ha ha ha!
The rapping hoodies, the spacemen, they're all unbelievably unfunny and they're just unpleasant to look at and listen to for that matter. The only one that ever gets a slight laugh out of me is the dinosaur doctor, because his sketches are one of the few ones that actually feel like they have a different punchline to them. The basic setup is a doctor who is a dinosaur who tries to find an excuse to eat one of his patients whenever one comes in, but for one reason or another they end up escaping, or just through their own naivete don't realise he's trying to eat them.
Aren't you going to scream?
My hiccups. I've been hiccuping for the last 2 days. And that little shock seems to have cured me.
No, Perkins, no. This patient is too full of artificial colouring. He won't make for good eating. Treating. Next!
This is actually a little bit funny. Not massively so, I'll grant you, but the voice acting from the doctor himself, combined with just how stupid some of his patients can be sometimes, it does get a little bit of a giggle at me. The rest are just absolute garbage, and quite frankly it was a waste of good animators, since clearly people working on this show had talent but it just wasn't fully utilised. The only people who seemed to actually be doing a decent job out of this were the people who came up with the theme tune, because it is a legitimately catchy theme tune. But when one of the best things of the show you have going for you is the first 30 seconds, you know it's not a good sign. So this is probably the lowest point for Aardman in terms of their TV shows, possibly even more so than Angry Kid. And I know I got a lot of backlash on how much I said I hated that show, and if you like it, fair enough, but I just really can't get into it. But take solace in the fact that I hate this one way more, and I don't think there's anybody out there who'll say that they like this one. Although I may live to regret that, who knows. And it's a tragedy as well, because Aardman has proven time and time again that they can make things that are even shorter than this show, that have more character, better jokes, and are just better made overall. And we'll be getting into those next time.